So, in this video, I want to talk about real capital, but I want to talk about it from a point of view of money, because up until now we've spoken a lot about real capital, and people have maybe thought that I've been talking about money, or they've been saying things like, well, if you're going to talk about real capital, it's fine, but what does it cost? Or you might think about it the other way. Is like you've got to think about money first and then real capital after. So I hope this explanation will bring you some kind of clarity. We've got this table here because we really want it to look like some kind of budget table. And I just have at this point the money displayed. Now, if you've heard the other videos, you'll hear real capital. There are 5 different kinds of real capital. There's natural capital, biological, and there's natural capital, mineral. There's the social infrastructure we have, which is the built capital, and then we have our organizations, which are social capital, and our humans, which are, that's us, human capital. Now let's look at the way this works with the annual budget. So we've got the government here, and they sit down, it's a long process, and decide what they're going to spend in the coming year, what they're going to spend it on. Now, in order to plan this, they have to look at the organizations they want to pay money to, which obviously we're talking about social insurance and the banking system itself, and you name it, everything, roads, rails, bridges, and subsidies, of course, to companies. They'll be looking at these organizations, their capacity and their capability and their functions. So they're going to spend that. And of course, you need humans in that equation. What are the needs of people? And then in terms of a workforce, what's the availability and capability? So it's a long, 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 difficult process. But in the end, they make that expenditure. So I'll put that as a minus in their column there. That, of course, goes to be a plus in the social side. So these organizations get a plus in their income, assets, and these organizations in turn go to employ people, but they also deliver services which support human beings outside of their work. So that's the way that works. Now, during the year, organizations pay tax, and so do ordinary people. They pay tax. So that comes into the government's coffers, or treasury, one might say. So that's basically the way it works. And of course, what you're going to look at then is, what are the follow-ups and what are the effects of this? Of course, the first effect is you have a deficit, or you have a surplus in that government account at the end of the year. But there are also effects on the other side. Our organizations, and it could be local municipalities, so I'm more familiar with, there's a surplus or a deficit, or if it's a company, it's a profit or loss. And that's the same really for humans. And it's plus or minus at the end of the year what their accounts look like. But we haven't yet looked at how real capital is involved in this process. Now, when the budget process goes on, it's not enough to look at the capability, capacity, etc. of the organizations that are going to be given money, or even the availability and the needs of people, they have to look at the real capital, because these organizations are going to be using the real capital. Now remember, the point of capital is it's used but not used up. So we're going to use the capacity of the biological system. We're going to use the availability of minerals, and we're going to use the capacities and the functions of the infrastructure. So that's all in the planning. What happens then during the year as these organizations go about their work? Well, in order, for example, if we need food, we have to harvest the natural from ecosystems for food or for forest products. Natural minerals, they need mining. Remember, they're used but not used up. I mean, iron is still iron in its basic terms. And it's the same thing with the built capital that's used. So at the end of the year, people are taxed, of course, and they pay the money, but natural capital and built capital doesn't really send you a bill. So what happens there? Well, let's start from here. Of course, if you're going to harvest from ecosystems, forests, fields, etc., then that act of harvesting degrades the ecosystem. And so during the year, there should be a degradation, and there should also be a restoration, so that at the end of the year we end up where we started. Or to go into the next year, there will be a less capacity. The same thing is true with minerals. If we're going to draw down our mineral reserves, obviously we'll need to make sure that that doesn't get lost. So there should be a recycling. And this recycling and drawing down should be equivalent to what's needed. Built capital is interesting. Railways, they wear out. So railways need maintaining. And if we're going to increase capacity, function, then they need upgrading. So that's what happens during the year. So finally, we need to think about if we can value the real capital. And the way we do that, and if we look here at the social and human, of course, this process, this budget year, may well have impacted the health of human beings. It could, I mean, theoretically, it could have increased the health, or it could have decreased the health. And if it's done that, it's decreased the availability, capability, and needs of human beings there. Same thing with organisation. Maybe, for example, there hasn't been enough money put into organisations, and they've had to lay off staff and sell things, and then they have a reduced capability. So, if you like, there's a real capital cost here. What would be the cost to put health back to where it should be? What would be the cost to bring the capability of these organizations back to where it should be? But it's also true of real capital. So there's a cost to restore the fields or the forests. There's a cost to recycle the minerals. And there's a cost to upgrade the built capital if it has been downgraded. The real point to take from this is that we're in, I think, an unfortunate situation where we have central governments are budgeting and planning. It's done from a financial point of view, but the moment that that budget is there, it's making claims on real capital, but it's doing it in a way that is unclear as to whether its budget, if you like, or its plan for the year is going to degrade natural capital, natural biological capital, is going to draw down mineral sources, and is going to wear out built capital. This is not written anywhere in national accounts, and from this point of view, politicians are unclear about the effect on real capital that their budget has had. Maybe more worrying is that the costs to get you back up to where it should be, and I mean should be is a political decision, but it should be enough to run the country. The cost to restore nature, the cost to recycle, and the cost to put that infrastructure back are not taken into account in the national planning. And so the whole function starts again. And these, if you like, costs to natural capital, they are hidden. And because of this, it's a real risk that our financial system, with all of our financial capital, is actually planned. It's planned to reduce our natural capital, biological, and our natural mineral wealth. And it's not really planned to take care of our human capital or social capital, or hardly our built capital. So I want to leave you with those thoughts.